Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 1170. 1170. June the 23rd, 2020, Tuesday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, well let's go ahead and get to the news of the last 24 hours, although it'll probably be very old news by the time you're watching this video because things are happening so fast these days that, I mean, news is breaking constantly, and what may be breaking news right now, 15 minutes from now, is old news. But we'll just go through it the best we can and see what we can come up with here. So just a couple things off the top here. The Trump campaign and the Biden campaign are now in kind of in a negotiation stage, or sort of in that agreement stage, to agree on the debates, the number of debates, and the date of the debates. And it looks like the Trump team was pushing to get a fourth debate. Now, keep in mind, there's always 3 debates. They're already set in stone. But the Trump team wanted to add another debate. And, of course, the Biden team has declared that they do not want to go along with the idea for a fourth debate. So, as it stands right now, there will just be 3 debates as normal, which will take place on September the 29th, October the 15th, and October the 22nd. And then, of course, there's a vice presidential debate, which I think is October the 7th. So it looks like it's going to be the typical debate schedule. Now, to be honest with you, I still think that the Democrats, even though they're agreeing to these 3 debate schedules, I still have a rough time believing they're actually going to go through with it and allow Joe Biden up on stage with Trump to debate. I have 100% belief that they will come up with something to try to keep Biden from actually being on the same stage with Trump in a debate. They're going to try to make it a podcast type debate or some sort of a digital debate or something like that. I just can't imagine they're going to go. First of all, I'm not even sure that they'll go with Biden as the VP. I think they might try to replace him before that. I think it's 50-50 at this point. But I'm pretty damn sure that they don't want him up on stage next to Trump. And I think they'll find some way to try to keep that from happening. Just seems logical. It's what my gut is telling me. So we'll keep watching and see if these 3 debates actually happen in the conventional manner they normally do. Well, it looks like over the weekend, Chicago set a new record. This weekend in the liberal city with Mayor Lightfoot over there in Chicago, it looks like they had 104 people shot. 104 people in a weekend shot. 14 killed. You know, Chicago may be deadlier than Iraq or Afghanistan. I mean, man, you don't want to go to Chicago, believe me. You don't want to go to Chicago. If you live there, get out. 104 people shot, 14 killed. That's a pretty tall number. They also had a record number of shootings in New York as well. So you can see that this defund the police, these liberal mayors and these liberal governors, they are really getting their asses kicked on this deal right now, probably realizing what a bad deal it is, but they've already bought into it, hook, line, and sinker. They own it. And as you can see by the numbers going up here, it tells you that the cops are basically, the police are basically not policing. Let's put it that way. They know what the situation is. They're just cruising along in their cars, collecting a paycheck, and watching out to make sure they don't get gunned down on patrol. That's what's happening right here. Policing is basically grinding to a halt. They're just going to grab their paychecks and stay safe, and I don't blame them. Thank you, Mayor Lightfoot. Thank you, Mayor de Blasio. You now have the blood of dozens and dozens of people on your hands. Maybe these people will wake up in these blue cities in blue states and start voting for some of the red guys for a chance. They have nothing to lose. You look at the crime before Giuliani took over, and then you look at the crime rates when Giuliani left, and then Bloomberg came in and pretty much continued most of Giuliani's policies. But now, since you see de Blasio, these numbers are back to the type of numbers you used to see, under previous New York mayors back in the 70s and things like that. So you can clearly see that it has a lot to do with who your mayor is and who your police chief is and who your local officials are. They're really the ones who are in charge of local policing. And you can see wherever you have a liberal mayor, you have a lot of dead people, a lot of people getting shot. You have a lot of poverty, just a lot of crime in general, because liberals benefit from crime. That's why they do it. I mean, if they actually solve the problem, they couldn't profit from it. It's kind of like pharmaceutical companies. They don't make drugs that cure things, they make drugs that treat things. If they cure the disease or cure your ailment, you don't need their medicine anymore. They don't want you cured, they want you treated. And that's what these liberal mayors want. They don't want to solve or cure the crime problems or the poverty problems or anything else. They don't have the antidote because they're not looking for it. They want to keep the citizens doped up on hope that their liberal mayor's social programs, higher taxes, and more regulations, and now targeting police. They think that that's the solution to their problems. But what they're finding out, according to the numbers we're looking at here, is that once again they've failed. Liberal policies, they fail every time they're tried, over and over again. And, you know, I mean, I know that some of you people think I should be more empathetic to the people that live in these cities and are being facing these afflictions, but I can't find it in my heart to feel empathy for them, because they're the ones who continue to vote for and re-elect these crazy people. I mean, if you're out there voting for these people, you kind of deserve what you get. I didn't vote for Bill de Blasio, did you? No, they did. And now look what they've got. And they'll probably re-elect him. Well, President Trump is hinting that Richard Grenell will be offered a high-level position in the administration. That's good news. Boy, I can think of two right now. It's a coin flip. FBI director or CIA director, one of the two. Gina Haspel is a dirty girl. She was the bureau chief in London in the summer of 2016. She would have known about everything. So, yes, Richard Grenell would be a good fit over at CIA as the director. But he would also be a good FBI director. So, I'd put him anywhere. The guy gets results, and I like that. So let's just hope that we hear that. I know he's taking a little bit of a break, but hopefully in the very near future we'll hear about him being offered this high-level position and accepting. And hopefully it's CIA or something like that. That would make me very happy. Well, it looks like Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkan looks like the Summer of Love tour is over. No more Summer of Love for Mayor Durkan. Just about 15 minutes before I did this video, started to do this video, she had a press conference. And she's announcing that they are now going in to one of the sections they identify as the East section. Police are moving in to take back a couple of block area. My feeling from watching the speech that she gave is that they will eventually take out the other three sections as well. But despite all that and the criticism she's taking and all the heat she's taking for what is being reported that's coming out of Chaz or Chop or whatever you want to call it, with we're hearing, of course, we know there's been shootings, we know there's been a couple people die, we've been hearing about rapes, assaults, and various other types of things. There appears to also be developing on the ground a major split between the factions who are controlling this. Apparently, the Black Lives Matter people want the whites to totally disappear into the background and have no front and center face position in that movement over there at CHOP. They want them to move into the background, but the whites are pushing back and saying, wait a minute, we're important to this movement, just as important as you are. You need us out here to show that there are whites who side with you. But the Black Lives Matter folks are not buying it. They want to totally be in control. So now there is a power struggle and this is what you always see. They cannibalize themselves. It happens over and over again. This is what we all knew would happen, and now it's happening. But it looks like Mayor Durkin has now been under so much pressure over the last 24 hours because of what's being reported that's coming out of there, that she realizes that the summer of love is over. And now she realizes she's going to have to go in there and break this thing up. But despite that, during a press conference, though, she said things are getting better. Things are getting better. Okay. But that is the latest on Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkin, who, by the way, was our winner of Dumbass of the Week this past week. Well deserved. And so that's what you have going on there with Mayor Durkin. The cops are taking back one sector of the zone, whatever you want to call it. And it looks like the beginning of the end of the experiment has been initiated. Well, you know, it's been very disappointing, very disheartening to me over the past several weeks, watching the once great NFL, Major League Baseball, and NASCAR kneel down and kiss the collective black and white asses of the commies, of the Marxists. Now, none of this is going to age very well for the NFL, Major League Baseball, NASCAR, and many of these large corporations who are in the process right now of squarely planting their lips all over the asses of the rioters. It's disgusting. I don't know if I can watch, and I love the NFL, but I don't know if I can watch any more professional football. I just don't know if I can do it. Because all I'll think about is how they behaved with no courage and no backbone. Same with NASCAR. I kind of liked watching NASCAR, but I can't believe they've capitulated. Show no backbone whatsoever. They've all come out to show their support for Black Lives Matter. Now, this is not going to age well for them, because as soon as this passes, and it will pass in a few months from now, not too far down the road, when it becomes publicly known to a lot of people, because the media certainly won't tell them, but it will eventually work its way to the surface, that Black Lives Matter is a Marxist organization who are dedicated to the destruction of the American system. Go read it on their website. Go listen to the two leaders of that movement as they describe how they are Marxist, how they teach Marxism in their organization, and how they want to destroy the entire American system. So basically, the NFL, Major League Baseball, NASCAR, and others have all come out in support of destroying the American system, of bringing Marxism to America, burning the flag, kneeling for the anthem, and assaulting people on the street if they don't bend down and wash the feet or kiss the black asses of Black Lives Matter. It's not going to age well for them, especially when it becomes even more widely known that Black Lives Matter is directly connected to the Muslim Brotherhood, which is centered in the Muslim world. You remember those guys, don't you? A lot of despots over there, and that's who Black Lives Matter is associated with. But the news media is not telling anybody that. But eventually the truth will rise to the surface. And when it does, all these once great organizations are somehow going to find themselves slapping themselves on the forehead and saying, what in the world did we do? They should have stood up for the flag and the anthem. They should have stood up and said, "This, we are not going to bow down to anybody, black, white, or otherwise, and beg for forgiveness for things we're not guilty of, or for the sins of our great-great-great-great-great-grandfathers, if you want to call them sins." I happen to think it's just a period of time those people lived in, and that was what people did. It's history. It is what it is. You can't change it. It's not good or bad. It's just history. It's just history. And 1,000 years from now, people will look back on this time and they'll think that we were a bunch of really horrible people as well. That's how history works. But yes, the NFL, Major League Baseball, NASCAR, and many others, once it becomes public knowledge, and it'll work its way to the surface of who Black Lives Matter is and what they really stand for, a lot of these major organizations are going to have a hell of a time walking back all that support. And there's a lot of things that could be done to bring this to their attention. All you need to do is take a screenshot of the front page of Black Lives Matter's website and send it over to the NFL and say, here's a screenshot of the Black Lives Matter website. I notice that it says that they're committed to the destruction of the American system and that they want to bring in Marxism. And it appears that they're being funded by the Muslim Brotherhood and related organizations in an area of the world that isn't terribly friendly with the United States and other Western countries. Is this what you're supporting, NFL? They're going to have to defend their position at some point. Wouldn't want to be them. And they want reparations for slavery now. Oh, I do too. Yes, that's right. You heard me right. Let's do some reparations for slavery. Because by far, the group of people who were enslaved the most over the centuries and should be looking for some reparations are whitey. That's right, whitey. Many, 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 many more times white people were held in slavery throughout our history than were blacks. Look it up. Look it up. You ever heard of the Ottoman Empire? They took a lot of slaves. So did the Roman Empire. So did a lot of the ancient empires, 1st through 6th centuries. Take a look at that. And how about the ancient Egyptians? Who do you think built them damn pyramids, brick by brick? Wasn't black folks. Nope. Surely it wasn't. So if we want to talk about reparations, then I think us white folks have some cash coming. And if the black folks want to go find out where they can go to get their reparations, all they need to do is go back to the origins, and they'll find themselves over in Africa or in Haiti, and they'll find that the individuals who sold those blacks into slavery were other black tribes, because that's how it worked back there in Africa. There were a lot of tribes who would be in constant state of war, and after a battle, the winners would take the losers as prisoners. Then they would sell them to middlemen for money, and those middlemen would then turn and sell them to slave traders. So it looks like if blacks in America want reparations, they need to go back over to Africa and find their black slave masters who sold them into slavery and hit them up for some cash. In the meantime, us white folks, we need to go over to Europe and hold our hand out and wait for the cash. I'm good. Now, let's get into some real Spygate news here. Russiagate, Obamagate, whatever you want to call a gate. Now, you know, Chuck Grassley has been very patient over the past 6 or 8 months since he first started asking questions, asking for documents and answers to some questions he had from this Office of Net Assessment, which we now know is the office that the fat man, Stefan Halper, worked for. And we now suspect, and Charles Grassley really suspects, that this James Baker, who was Halper's boss at the Office of Net Assessment, that James Baker was the guy who leaked the Flynn Kislyak phone call. Sidney Powell put it in one of her legal briefs that she too says the overwhelming evidence points to James Baker at the Office of Net Assessment. A lot of things are going on with that Office of Net Assessment. Halper was working out of there. I think Halper's the guy who wrote the dossier. Wouldn't doubt it. So, of course, Baker is Halper's boss. And of course, Grassley believes, just like Sidney Powell, that Baker leaked the Flynn-Kislyak phone call. And we know that Baker had a very close friendship with David Ignatius. So Grassley has been waiting and waiting for questions to be answered from the Office of Net Assessment, waited for documents, and has tried to get witnesses to testify. He's getting nothing but pushback and stonewalling from the Office of Net Assessment, so he's finally reached the end of his rope. And it looks like now that he has just sent a letter to the Office of Net Assessment and to Baker, and has given him, Grassley's given Baker to July the 2nd to respond to the letter and answer the questions. And there's 3 very good questions where Grassley nails down whether or not he, James Baker, provided the information to David Ignatius, either directly or through a third party, about the Flynn-Kislyak phone call. Baker doesn't want to answer that question, and the Office of Net Assessment does not want to cooperate with Grassley. But I think things are about to change. So we'll continue to follow this, and we should know here very soon what Grassley's going to do, because I can just about guarantee you that the O&A and James Baker are still going to continue to stonewall. Because they know that Grassley doesn't have a whole lot he can do. He can try to subpoena, but these are current government employees. It's going to be hard to force them to come and testify, and if they do, they'll say nothing. It's going to be up to Durham to get to the bottom of this, or I think it's John Bash that's actually now looking at the leaks. But this one seems to be have already been sniffed out by Sidney Powell. And all the indicators are that it was most likely this individual, James Baker, over at the O&A, Halper's boss, that was the source of the leak, either directly or indirectly, to Ignatius over the Flynn-Kislyak phone call. We'll continue to follow this and see where this goes. We had Nadler, the Penguin, on the Commie News Network over the weekend, and he's now saying that impeaching Barr would be a waste of time, but they might consider calling Trump to testify. That's funny. No, a sitting president will never ever testify to Congress. Okay, no sitting president ever has or ever will testify to Congress. Okay, and Nads knows that quite well. But the reason that he doesn't want to bring Attorney General Barr in is because he knows that Barr will wipe the floor with him, and he also knows that his entire plan to harass Attorney General Barr over these firings, he knows it's a loser, because the Attorney General can do the firing, or if he can't, the President can. Fire anybody in the executive branch for any reason he wants, or no reason at all. So, Nadler knows that Barr will eat his lunch and make him look stupid. He also has probably been advised by now what I told you in the last video, which is Attorney General Barr appointed all these outside attorneys because he was ordered to by the FISA court. He's got total cover. See, Barr's not a stupid man. Unfortunately, the Penguin is. And that's the underlying problem here. Dun dun da 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 dun dun da 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 da. It's a circus act with the Penguin, and the bug-eyed fool ain't far behind. Well, obviously there was some issues with the Trump rally. There was about 12,000 people there instead of 20,000 or whatever. Obviously, a lot of people were worried about the violence. A lot of people were worried, were they going to have a curfew, not going to have a curfew? Were there going to be violent people there? Were there not going to be violent people there? Were they going to be able to have the outdoor part of it? Turns out they weren't able to have the outdoor part of it. A lot of people didn't come. Still not a bad crowd, considering all the circumstances around it. But what's really extraordinary is that the number of people who watched it on Fox. Now, this is just on Fox. Now, I didn't watch it on Fox. I watched it, but not on Fox. Fox had 12 million viewers watching the Trump rally. 12 million. That's on a Saturday night. 12 million people watching Fox. Now, when I pulled up the live stream, I had about 6 or 7, 8 different live streams available. Fox was one of them. I did not choose Fox. I went with another one. But there were 6, 7, 8 live streams. That's just, what I saw on YouTube. Not to mention people watching on TV and everything else. So, yeah, I mean, there's no telling how many people were watching, but probably in the range of, I would say, 15 million, somewhere in that range, 12, 13, 14, 15 million. Certainly we know at least 12 were watching just Fox. So you can guess there was another 2, 3, 4, 5 million watching on other platforms. So, huge rally. And it's going to take time, I think, for people to get back to being comfortable with going out, especially now that you have this threat of violence, which is going to happen now at every Trump rally. There's going to be threats that there's going to be, people there wanting to stir up fights and things like that. So they're going to have to address the security issues, and probably you still have a little bit of hangover of coronavirus and that sort of thing. But for the most part, this propaganda that they're spewing over on the left-wing media that there was only 6,000 or whatever people there is bullshit. It's not true. There was about, as I understand, 10 or 12,000. And there were millions and millions and millions who watched it, viewed it. The fact is, they got the message. Whether they got it there in person, out in the parking lot, on their car radio, or on a live stream broadcast, millions and millions and millions of people tuned in to Trump. Biden would not be able, when Biden does a live stream, he cannot even get like a couple hundred people. That's how bad it is. But that's what we expect from the fake news. That's why we call them the fake news. Of course, today is election day, primary election day in a lot of states. There'll be a lot of interesting races, I think, to watch tomorrow. Probably the one that a lot of people are focused on, obviously, is this race in Ocasio-Cortez is in, because she's got a pretty good candidate. Now, Ocasio-Cortez can raise a lot more money because she's a national figure, and she gets donations from all over the country, whereas her counterpart running in this primary against her, who's the primary one, there's 4 or 5, but the main one is this former journalist, Michelle Cabrera. And even though Cortez has outraised her by 100 times, a lot of people give her a pretty decent shot at maybe being able to defeat Ocasio-Cortez. I think if that happens, that's going to be a major, major top-line news story if she is defeated in this primary. But she sure gets a lot of money. She's got that star power, so in a Democrat district, probably enough for her to win. But it'll be interesting to see what the numbers look like. There'll be a lot to look at after tomorrow's primaries to analyze number-wise to get a feel of what we may be looking at in local elections in the fall. And I think those are really going to be the elections to watch. I don't think the presidential election is one to watch. If it's Trump versus Biden, Trump's going to win in a very big way. I don't think it's much to watch. The congressional races will be much more interesting. The Senate will be obviously, there's some tight races there. That's a much tougher deal there. But I think a lot of people, what I'm going to be watching a lot is a lot of these local elections. Because a lot of the issues that we've been dealing with in the last couple of months, coronavirus and the riots, these are issues that are local issues. These are issues that the president has nothing to do with, really, very little. It has mostly to do with the governors and the mayors and the police chiefs and people like that. So I think the local elections are going to be something to really watch today in these primaries, and I think they'll tell us a lot about what may happen in November. And then I think in November there'll be some very eye-opening results having to do with local elections and state elections. Very interesting tweet from Paul Sperry. Paul Sperry notes that the FBI/Mueller team opened 7 cases on Trump advisors, and all these guys, foreign policy advisors, with the exception of Manafort, who was brought on to help clean up the delegate problem they were having, as the Republicans were trying to steal delegates from Trump as he was winning these primaries in the spring. And so the 7 cases on Trump, all but one, were cases on foreign policy advisors to the Trump campaign. And Mueller and the FBI opened up these 7 cases based on foreign lobbying FARA violations. That's a problem, because the entire 2.5-year hoax, we were all told it was about Russia, investigating Russia. But now we find that it was always about FARA violations. Foreign agent lobbying is basically what we're talking about here. If you are going to lobby for a foreign government, you must pay a registration fee of like $300, and you must fill out the form just so the government knows that you are in fact lobbying for a foreign government. It's not illegal to do, but you're supposed to fill out the application and pay the fee. But lots of people do not, and they usually get a hand slap and a fine, and then they have to fill out the application and pay the fee, and then they go back to doing what they're doing. But in this case, the FBI and Uncle Bob the executioner opened up 7 cases. Now, normally when you're opening up a case on someone you suspect them of colluding with the foreign government, and it's a FARA type issue, Foreign Agent Registration Act issue, it's dealing with someone who either hasn't registered, or maybe they're engaged in some illegal type activities as they're doing their foreign lobbying. But that was not really the case here at all, because we were told that it was about Russia and Trump people colluding with Russia. Well, that would be espionage. But there were no investigations or charges really of espionage at all. Not really. It's in that first part of the Mueller report, but we know that that was all bunk, because they knew it was bunk from day one. So what that tells us is what Paul Sperry is trying to say is that the entire time that the Mueller and FBI was running this phony Russia investigation, that it was never about investigating Russians or anything else, because they knew it was a hoax. It was always about trying to entrap Trump advisors over FARA violations, so that pressure could be put on them to sing, to compose a melody, to make up something about Trump that they could use against him to drive him out of office. The only person that really had anything to do with Russia would have been Carter Page, but they knew very early on that he's actually an agent of the American government, was an informant for the FBI and the CIA, and they knew that. And who was the brainchild? Who was the brainchild that decided to pretend that there was a Russia investigation when actually they were doing FARA violations, hoping to use that to get a couple of these guys, to put enough pressure on them to get them to roll over on Trump and make up something about him? Well, as we've already pointed out, that man is David Laufman. David Laufman. He was the brainchild that came up with the idea. A lot more to come on that, I am sure. Thank you for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. See you. Bye.